Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of it. Up and down, can you feel it? Up and down.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Johansson show. It's Kurt. Today, another special guest as I'm looking into hashtag Scandinavia's. Everybody's been singing his praises during all these interviews, and we kind of spoke about him in depth in my interview with Christian, the owner of Bodyslam, because he is a former Bodyslam champion and Bodyslam tag team champion, Michael Fynne. Michael, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
No, really, really excited. I mentioned it, like, everybody's been singing your praises. Everybody talks about either wanting that match with Michael Fynne or finally having that match with Michael Fynne when you was part of the reason they got into wrestling, and there they are a couple of years later wrestling you. So off the back, how does that feel when you've got people like, say, Peter Alessandro, where he talks about seeing you on his first indie show, and then the fact he gets to wrestle you was one of his highlights of his career. How does that feel for you as a wrestler?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I'm fucking awesome. No, I joke. I kid. Nah, it's flattering, you know. It's quite humbling because in my mind, it feels just like yesterday when I was just a wrestling fan watching The Rock and those guys. Not to compare myself to them, because like those guys are on like a whole nother level compared to me. But it's quite flattering, like, because I have had people on the Danish scene come up to me and tell me that I'm the reason why they got into wrestling, because you need to remember, like, wrestling in Denmark and Scandinavia as a whole is still pretty niche and underground. Yeah. So it's quite flattering and humbling to like have people come up to me and tell me that kind of stuff. It really is.
Nah, I can imagine, and because it isn't just happening like one off, it's literally every time where people like just singing the praises when they've finally got in that ring, or you're on their bucket list of when I'm saying, right, who you wanting to face. It can be from Scandinavia, it can be from around the UK, wherever. And again, if they've not faced you, they're saying your name.
I truly do appreciate that. I really do, because I'm only like one small piece of the puzzle as far as this whole Scandinavia's thing goes. Like because I mean, I know that like Christian, he told me like I am the guy as far as Danish wrestling goes, but yeah, I can't like run the whole ship like on my own. So like teamwork makes the dream work. But with that being said, I am really like appreciative that people tell me that they want to face me if they haven't done so already. So I really do take pride in that. But also just like I want to make people better. Like my goal as far as wrestling in general goes, and forgive me if I start rambling. I heard the one with Christian, and he kind of tends to ramble a lot. So
I like the rambling. Don't worry.
Right. So I'm kind of the same way. But my goal is, as far as wrestling goes, is just to make, you know, Danish wrestling as big as it can possibly be, because like there's no history, there's no culture for wrestling in Denmark, and I would really love to make that happen. And being a part of that, especially like from the early days, which in my opinion we're still in, it's like for me like that's bigger than being a part of WrestleMania, just for me. Yeah. So it really does mean a lot for me. So if we can make this thing as big as, and it's only growing and growing, and in my opinion, like I didn't think it would be where it is right now. Yeah. Because like who would give a fuck about some wrestling company in Denmark of all places? But you know, it's heading in the right direction, and you know, we're making moves. Hope that answered your question, Kurt.
Well, I mean, I'm interested because like when you've been everybody's inspiration to try it out and to get in the ring, what was your inspiration? Like, what was your first like insight, one on professional wrestling, but two on Danish wrestling?
Well, to start with, like just professional wrestling, how I got into it. So originally I am from Denmark. My mom's Danish and my dad's from Gambia. I was born in Aarhus, which is where Bodyslam is based and the second largest city in Denmark behind Copenhagen. When I was 5, my dad, he had to go study at Birmingham University. So we lived there for 8 years. We moved in 99 and then we moved back in 2007, hence my accent.
Yeah.
So I think I was about like 6 or 7 years old. I just kind of, swiped through television, and I think I was on Sky One. This was during like the Attitude Era. I think SmackDown was on, and that was like my true first introduction. But I didn't like get hooked straight away. And then when I was gonna turn 8, the thing I wanted the most was like a PS2, because if you didn't have a PS2 back then, you weren't shit.
Yeah.
And and I remember like in the catalog, with the PS2, you could get 2 free games with it, and one of those games was WWF SmackDown Just Bring It. And I remember wanting that game. And when I got that game along with the PS2, that's when I really like start to get truly invested, because it was through the game that I learned who like I already knew who Rock and Stone Cold were, but it was through that game I learned who like the rest of the roster was, and then I started watching it like on a weekly basis, and that's how I got hooked on it. And as far as the Danish scene goes, while we were living in Birmingham, every summer and Christmas we would come back home to visit my mom's side of the family. But wrestling wasn't on TV. It still isn't to this day. It wasn't on TV back then either. And then fast forward, we ended up moving back to Denmark like right before the financial crisis. We moved back in 2007 when I was 13. So I'm 26 now. And then one of our former neighbors were by us, and they asked us how we were doing. And my mom, like, when we moved back to Denmark, I wasn't truly thrilled because all my friends were in England. I just started year 8, so yeah. And then our former neighbor told us, when my mom told her I missed wrestling, watching it on TV and stuff, our neighbor told us that her son went to a school where there were 2 teaching assistants who taught wrestling. And initially we thought, like, you mean like Olympic wrestling? Because we were kind of confused because pro wrestling wasn't really a thing in Denmark. And then she was like, no, we mean like pro wrestling, like the stuff that Hogan and Stone Cold and all them. And then I found out that the 2 teaching assistants, one of them was actually Tank. And then from there, he told us he told us we could stop by the training location. Back then it was every Sunday, and that's how I got introduced to the Danish wrestling scene. Yeah.
So how old was you when you first started doing your training sessions then?
I was 13.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I was quite young. Like when we were still living in England, we were trying to find like, and I lived in Handsworth, by the way, in the B21 area. We were searching for schools, but this was like when I lived in the UK. It was before the huge boom that happened in the British scene a couple of years later. So it wasn't that quite easy for us to find a place to train. And I know there was probably like some place in London we could train, but it was too far, and my family isn't the richest, so it just never happened. So I started when I was 13 in Denmark, being trained by Tank and another wrestler called Cool Kill, and Chaos, the guy from DPW. He was there quite, I'd say a lot in the beginning, but later on I think he started to get more bookings in Germany and stuff. So he was more like in and out. So it was primarily Tank and Cool Kill who trained me. So I was 13 years young when I started.
When was your first match?
My first match was when I was 15, about to be 16, in February of 2010. It was just a dark match though, in DPW. I think they were kind of testing out dark matches and stuff. So I was 15, but we weren't allowed to do any, like, we were told we weren't allowed to do anything from the top. We weren't allowed to brawl, which was fine with me because, I didn't want to do any of those stuff anyway. But Yeah, so that was early 2010.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what was that first experience like? How did you find being in front of the audience and stuff like that?
For me, it came quite naturally, to be honest, because I've always, I mean, for me, I've always been a performer. I've always been comfortable. I mean, as a person, I'm kind of like the opposite of my character. I'm charismatic, but I'm an introvert. So um, I tend to like when I need to recharge, I need to be by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but as far as like the crowd and everything, it came quite naturally to me because I've done some theater when I was younger, especially like in secondary school before I moved back to Denmark, and I've done taekwondo where I've competed in front of like audiences during fights and stuff. So it came quite naturally to me. Obviously, I wasn't like super crisp. I think my first ever matches on the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't like super crisp. But for what it was, I think it went quite well. And I was quite comfortable with the crowd. So there was just like major improvements that had to be done. So yeah.
How did you find adjusting when you've done like taekwondo and stuff like that, and then trying to then do professional wrestling? Did it take some getting used to?
The thing that took, the thing that was quite, I'd say like as far as uh, like all like the athletic things like was quite easy for me to pick up.
Yeah.
That's where like the martial arts background helps because I mean in general like if you have like a background, I mean you see like people who like have done amateur wrestling and they jumped into pro wrestling, they usually tend to like pick up the moves quite quickly because they already have like athletic. But the thing that was difficult for me was the whole like I mean the first time I had to learn, which was on the first day, like learn how to do an elbow drop and a clothesline. I was like, despite like watching like wrestling on television and being a fucking fanatic since I was 8, I was quite surprised by it, by like how much contact there actually is. Because when you watch it on TV, and mind you, I was a child, so
Yeah.
like I didn't actually think, even though I saw that was contact, I didn't think that was actually physical contact, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was kind of difficult for me to begin with because I didn't want to hurt my training partners and stuff. But I think like a week or two went by, and then I quickly picked it up, as I remember correctly.
Yeah. So obviously, I introduced you as being former Bodyslam champion and tag team champion, but you started out with DPW Dance Pro Wrestling,
Yes.
and like quite early on in your career, I believe you became a champion in that company, the light heavyweight champion. How long had you been wrestling until you ended up winning that title?
Training wise, probably 4 years, but as far as like wrestling on shows, I'd say like a little bit over a year. They started booking me in February of 2010. Like my first ever match was in DPW, and then in October of 2011, they did like a one night tournament, um, which I won, but I wasn't told I was gonna win until the day of.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I mean, like I talk about this before with like close friends and stuff. Like in hindsight, looking back now, I mean, at the time I wasn't ready for it because earlier that year, 2011, I was still doing dark matches. So it went from like doing dark matches to all of a sudden being champion. But I think the reason why I was given the belt that early in my career and in my life was that that there was kind of a split in the Danish wrestling scene. This was like pre-Body Slam.
Yeah.
There was a split because there were certain wrestlers who were unsatisfied by how things were run over in DPW. So all of a sudden, the roster wasn't as stacked as it once was as far as the Danish wrestlers goes. Like they were still booking wrestlers from the UK and Germany, specifically Scotland. So I think like they saw potential in me, so they just kind of gave me the belt, but it was short lived. But in hindsight, I was happy it happened because it forced me to learn quicker. Because you can learn all the moves and all the drills in training, but in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, where you learn the most is front of the crowd under the bright lights, So given that responsibility at such a young age, because I was 17, was it was eye-opening in a good way though, but I wasn't ready for it, and it was short-lived because I ended up losing the belt like 2 or 3 months later. Yeah.
But obviously that run still gave you some good matches, including the person you lost to. Like, we won't mention his name because of certain things that's come out. But at such a young age, like, we can't disregard his skill. And at that age, you're still getting to wrestle some fantastic wrestlers. And you mentioned people from Scotland. I know your DPW era and stuff like that. You ended up managing to fight Drew Galloway. Like,
oh yeah.
For those obviously that don't follow like British wrestling, it's Drew McIntyre. Like, how was that for you? Like, how did you feel? Because the ICW heavyweight title was on the line. Was that correct as well?
Yeah, and I believe, like, someone might correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the first time the ICW title was like defended outside of the UK and ICW in general. I could be wrong, so don't completely quote me on it, but I read somewhere that was the first time, because I read about myself on the internet because I'm a fucking mark. But I digress. Nah, I kid. But yeah, that was quite the experience. He was a super cool guy. I mean, I only met Drew that one time. He was supposed to come back a couple of months later, but there was some miscommunication between DPW management and him, so it never happened. And I ended up leaving leaving the company not too long after. But that match was, I mean, I learned a lot from that match, and just like working with someone as seasoned, like a veteran like Drew. I did not take that for granted. I was quite nervous before the match because I believe his the first flight ended up getting cancelled. I forget what country he was flying from, because
he was all over at that point.
Yeah, he was all over the place. Like, this was right after he got released from WWE, so he was like all over the place, just getting booked. But I remember, like, his first flight got cancelled. And then he came on another. He arrived like just as the was underway, but and again, in hindsight, it was probably a blessing in disguise, because before that I was just used to, like, I wouldn't say like rehearsing the matches in my first 2 matches probably, but I was used to like having enough time before the show to plan the match. And now I only had, like, I mean, when the co-main event, before the co-main event, we had nothing. And then as the co-main event was underway, I believe that's when we were planning the match. And I just fucking kept my mouth shut and listened to him. And he was the ring general. But that was a good match, and it was super cool to me. So yeah, I'm not even sure if he remembers me, to be quite honest, because he wrestles so many people on the indies. But if he, I hope our paths cross again at some point, because I really did genuinely like him. And he gave me some we just talked about all kinds of stuff, not just wrestling. So yeah, that was quite the experience, and I'm super fucking happy for the success that he's getting right now in the WWE.
He's absolutely killing it at the moment, isn't he?
Fucking killing it, yeah.
So after you mentioned that, I was quite intrigued to see if it was correct. And I believe, obviously, I remember watching the ICW promo where he returned, and it was so fueled, and it was like they care about what's best for business. I'm the fucking business. And then off that, he just went off on a massive roll. He became the Evolved champion. But from looking in, you're correct. Not only was it the first country the ICW title was defended in other than Scotland, but it was the first time it had been defended outside of ICW.
Yeah.
It It was the first. So you was involved in what was the first step in making it a world title against Drew when he started going around collecting every belt there is.
Yeah. So that was. I'm not really like the type of guy who like, because wrestling is a work, but it's still like an honor for me to like know that I had an ICW title shot.
Yeah.
So and it wasn't like till like years later that I found out that it was the first time being defended outside ICW, because I was reading an article, not that like I didn't search my name or anything, but I forget what website it was, and then it was like a list, and then his name popped up, and that's why it was mentioned, which did surprise me because of, again, like of all the promotions that he wrestled for, like Evolve, ICW, all them promotions. I was quite surprised that that some small wrestling promotion in Denmark was like the one where it got defended the first time. And again, I'm not too sure like what the rules are as far as I'm sure if like some indie promotion that no one's heard of, you can just take that title and defend it anywhere you want. But like a promotion as big as ICW, as it is on the indie scenes, like there could be some rules as far as that goes. So if they like gave the green light, yeah. So if they gave the green light for that to happen, I mean, that's an honor for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, it definitely is the case. Like I know from certain companies that I've helped with here in the UK, and even just from like what I'd read or what you hear and stuff, and for that to be classed as a title match, Drew have had to have had the approval of management in ICW
Exactly.
to put it on the line. And again, I think it was because I was wanting to use Drew in terms of making that title a world championship, and obviously use the first step with that. And then what was it like to backtrack? Because obviously Drew walked away as champion.
Yeah.
What was it like? I know you've been light heavyweight champion, but becoming the heavyweight champion.
Yeah. So I was, so as I mentioned, like I wasn't ready for the light heavyweight title reign the first time. The second one doesn't count because it ended up like being 2 days. I'm not sure why they booked it like that, but they did. But as far as the heavyweight reign goes, I was a lot more ready for that because I had some more like experience under my belt at this point. This was like in 2014.
Yeah.
So I was a lot more like, I felt more confident in the ring,
Yeah.
as far as like I could work with anyone, whereas before I was more comfortable working with like Danish wrestlers only.
Yeah.
I mean, so I held that belt like with pride as best as I could. Unfortunately, and it's cool now. Like I never really had a problem with it back then,
Yeah.
and I don't now anyway. But when I was champion over there, I wasn't always the main event. Like Chaos was usually the guy who would main event. But it's just like as a champion, like I was like the champion. I probably should have been in the main event every show. But to answer your question, like I felt like I was the guy back then. Whereas like with the light heavyweight title, I wasn't. I was kind of insecure in like, shit, should I be champion? But again, I was a bit older. I was still young. Like when I won the belt, I was 20, about to be 21. So I was still young. But like when I was 17, I didn't really expect I didn't expect anything like that, because before me, I mean, in the recent years, DPW's roster has been quite young. I won't go into like they've been quite young. If you look at some of the recent stuff, it's been like a really young roster. But before me, you had to be a certain age before you could wrestle. But then when that split happened, I think they got kind of desperate and they just kind of started using whoever they could. So yeah, with the light heavyweight title, the first reign, I was not ready. The second with the heavyweight title, I was, and I was a lot more confident in my abilities in the ring, and just to carry the company the best that I could. Hope that answers. Yeah.
It's frustrating to hear that they wouldn't mainly put you in the main event, even though you're champion. I think I agree. If you're the champion, you should be closing the show, unless there's been a massive storyline, whether it's the undercard or maybe the undercard title or anything like that, that's built and built and built, and it's getting that big culmination, then fair enough. But
Yeah,
I could see why you'd be frustrated because here you are being the man, but you're
yeah.
not being
I mean,
treated.
again, like back then, I didn't mind it. It wasn't until like, because I was 21, so I was just like, fuck it, I'm the guy. I mean, not to say I was like a mark, but you know, when you're that young, you don't think shit through. It wasn't until I was a bit older where I started like taking the business side seriously, and that kind of goes for like the music industry as well, because the music industry and the wrestling industry is a lot more similar than people think. But yeah, back then I was just like, whatever, fuck it, I'm the champ. But you know, from a business standpoint, and the thing is, like with DPW, when I was a part of it, there were storylines, but there weren't really storylines, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It didn't. I mean, it was mostly like, here's wrestler A against wrestler B, and then once in a while, during the later years before I left, they would just kind of book random. I shouldn't say random because that's not what I mean, but they would book former WWE guys in just because, and then for the most part, that guy would be in the main event. Whereas like the guys who carry the company are just kind of like there, if that makes sense. Not to make this a bash DPW thing, because I have hashed things out with Chaos. Like I don't know, like there was a bit of a, I wouldn't call it beef, but there was a bit of falling out. So we have like, you know, we're cool now. We're not best friends, but we're all right. But it's just like, I'm just speaking facts. Like there were no storylines. They were just like, they would book as they go, and then the guys who were there to like carry the company on their backs would just kind of be there, and I felt like they were taken for granted at times. I don't know how it is now, but that's how it was back then when I was there. Yeah,
I appreciate the honesty. Like I've seen similar things in the UK where some companies will just book wrestler because they're available and they're from WWE. I know one company in particular had sold out, so they've sold all the tickets, can't make any more money. Didn't plan on having a specific wrestler on the show because they already had quite a few WWE names, and a certain wrestler who is actually back in WWE actually, from America, became available, and he was like, "Okay, I'll book you." And booked him on the show in a throwaway match, and I don't get it because as a business, that doesn't make any sound business point. This person, will he sell DVDs? Probably not just off his own name, but yes, he'll do meet and greet. Why not save it down the line? Like when you've sold out all your tickets and you've made the most money you can from ticket sales, why then just spend over $1,000 to bring in a WWE name? I don't understand that business standpoint, and like hopefully things have got better with DPW, and it's good to see that you've managed to hash things out and get on cool terms, because I know wrestling can become a bitter place for a lot of people. Like, with people falling out.
There's no secret that, I mean, as far as, just like to backtrack, the whole like booking WWE legends thing, I think there's two, like I think there's like probably two reasons as to why small indie promotions do. I think one is to say, I've had so and so on like wrestle for me, and I think the other one is just to make as much money as you can, because it's very short-term booking. Like what Bodyslam has been doing, they've been booking like all the guys who are hot in the indie scenes. I mean, Chris Brookes, I mean, the list could go on and on. They've booked Chuck Mambo. I mean, these guys, Flash Morgan Webster. I mean, they book guys who are hot in the indie scene. So when they eventually do get to WWE, we can go, oh, look, we had this guy here before, like on the rise, instead of like booking guys who have been there and like on, I mean, I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way, because that's not my intentions, but that's how I think. Those are the two reasons why I think they book like these WWE legends. And as far as like, what was the other question? Because I had something. I lost my train of thought.
It was just good. It was just good that like yourself and Chaos have
Oh
managed
yeah,
to
yeah,
hash things out.
yeah. Because that whole thing started. I mean, there was a falling. Oh, well, the falling out hadn't happened yet, but there was kind of like some tension between him and I because a couple of months prior to me leaving, there was a new company in Germany called Maximum Wrestling at the time.
Okay.
Which they're still around. They're actually a good promotion. I believe Sander Nitro Green, a man of many names. I believe he still wrestles there from time to time. I mean, now with the Corona thing, probably not, but
yeah.
he still wrestles there. But I remember me and him, we were booked for the first show, and it went fucking fantastic. And then for the second show, the plan was for me and him to ride together. But then, for whatever reason, like he was gonna ride with him, like it was him, his wife at the time, and her son.
Yeah.
And I believe they were like they had booked a hotel a couple of days prior, so he asked me like on short notice to find out another way to get there on my own. So he just kind of like leaves me there. I don't think he meant like, I mean, sometimes he doesn't think things quite through.
Yeah.
There was another time where we were booked in Scotland and he had booked the flight. I mean, we laugh about it now, but he had booked the flight ticket like accidentally, like the day before we had to go. So like the ones who came to pick us up, they were like, "Where are you guys?" We were supposed to land in Glasgow, and then the whole like we couldn't get booked. We're like we couldn't make it because of that. But so anyways, he asked me if I could find another way to get there, and I was like, "I'll try, but I can't promise anything." So I couldn't make it, unfortunately, because of that. And then a week went by. Then he sent me a text message, going along the lines of like, because they train in Randers, and I'm from Aarhus, so I train with my guys. But they like to have everyone who's booked there, like the locals, to train together. And I couldn't make it at the time because of work, and I was already getting training. And truth be told, I kind of had some pent up frustrations because I don't know how things are now. I think they're quite the same, but whatever people choose to do is fine. But they didn't pay the Danish wrestlers at the time, but we still had to pay a fee despite if we didn't train with them. So I was kind of fed up. Like in the beginning of your career, I do get you wrestle for free. It's the same in the music industry where you perform for free in the beginning. But at that point, I was like almost 5 years in with DPW. So I was kind of getting kind of sick and tired of that. So I sent him like a text message. I wasn't like scolding him, but it was a bit of a rant where I was like, first of all, like you kind of left me high and dry on late notice. And then second of all, like I wrestle for you for free, blah, 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 and stuff like that. So that's where the tension started. And this was like in December of 2014. And then fast forward to like February or March, the tension was like first of all, I didn't really want to be there anymore because I wasn't a fan of how again, like with those who like split before, I wasn't a fan of how shit was run over there. I wasn't a fan of not getting paid. I felt like wrestlers were taken for granted even when they weren't getting paid, which is like, so I was getting kind of sick and tired of that shit. And then I remember the last time I was there, like you could cut the fucking tension with a knife between him and I. I mean, there was no blowout. We were still professional. He's a very professional guy, so like it was all good there. But there was tension for sure, and I was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And originally, I was supposed to take a break anyway because I was close to like quitting wrestling. Wow. So originally, before Bodyslam was like an idea, I was gonna take a break after dropping the belt to Drew, and then I wanted to like kind of see what I wanted to do. I was like kind of contemplate things and think about if I wanted to continue wrestling or not, because the passion had kind of like faded away for like a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I just ended up fucking leaving. And then a couple of days later, there's like a new promotion getting announced, which is Bodyslam, and I was like the first person to get told about this by Christian and Soren. And at the time, like whoever there was no mention of who the promoters were, and I was the one who was like promoting Bodyslam everywhere. So he thought I was the promoter, and he took it as I'm like fucking trying to go head to head with him. That was not the case, by the way, but that's how he took it, and that's how that whole fucking thing started. But you know, we're cool now. Wrestling is like a fucking goofy. Like there's so many egos and things get misunderstood all the time. I'm pretty sure it's like 10 times worse in the UK because like the wrestling scene is a lot bigger over there.
So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
But like before we get to Bodyslam, then you mentioned your music career. So like,
Yeah.
How did that all start? Because am I right in thinking you've done a song for a Danish boxer as well?
I did just recently. He's actually also a good friend of mine. But yeah, I did. His name is Michael Della Rosa Nilsson. He's a half Danish, half Filipino. So I just recently did a song for him, and he's like, he's fought on. I mean, at the moment he's 4-0, by the way, and he's fought on like television over here, and he hasn't been boxing that long, so that's quite impressive. So I did that song for him. So it's kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine, kind of thing. I was actually supposed to like do his entrance song as he was heading to the ring on national television.
I was gonna say, are you doing a live performance?
I haven't yet. I was supposed to, but then fucking COVID-19 had other plans. But I was supposed to, and you know, it gets played every time he heads out to the ring, and that helps me because then I make a little extra money, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. I did that song just like I recorded it like a year ago, but it came out earlier this month on like Spotify and stuff. Yeah.
Ah, nice. So everybody, make sure you do check that out as well.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Like, is that something you're interested in getting more involved in, especially in like professional wrestling, doing some people's soundtrack like that?
Oh, as far as doing, oh yeah, definitely. I actually have. It's not the first time I did an entrance song for someone. I actually did. One of my good friends who actually had. He hasn't. I wouldn't say he's trained me, but so DPW they still do to this day. But you know they've been doing these fake or break camps for years, and one of those trainers back when I was like doing the fake or break camps as a trainee was Falcon. His name's Paul McLaren is his shoot name. I actually did like one of his entrance songs not too long ago. So it's not the first time I've done one, but I'd definitely be open to doing more entrance songs. I mean, I've done my own, but I don't put myself on that list because it doesn't really count. But as far as like athletes, pro wrestlers, I've done 2 entrance songs so far, but it definitely be something I'd be more open to. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And you mentioned going to Germany, so I know you've wrestled in Sweden as well for Svenskan. Was it GBG as well?
Yeah, the first time I wrestled in Sweden was actually for SWS, which is in Malmö, and then I've wrestled for GBG in Gothenburg, and then I've wrestled for Stockholm Pro Wrestling. Yeah.
How has that been for you? And then the same with Finland as well with FCF. Like, how has it been wrestling in these other like Scandinavian countries? And here you are, essentially one of the biggest names in Danish wrestling. Do you get a similar reaction when you go into these countries? Are people familiar with your work from Denmark, or is it having to re-educate the crowd?
I mean, the first time I was there, probably not, because this was like pre-Bodyslam, and DPW weren't really storyline guys, and they wouldn't really promote storylines on social media that well. So it was more like of a local thing. So at the time, no, but still, even after Bodyslam, it's like I wouldn't even say it's 50-50. It's probably like 20-80, because there's always like the smart marks who knows who you are and stuff, and then the majority of the crowd don't, so you need to introduce them. But like with all the promotions actually in Sweden, they're very good to like tell the audience who you are before the show. So I remember the last time I was in GBG, they kind of already knew who I was, even though that was like technically that was the second time I was there. But there's been such like the first time I was in GBG was in 2013, and then when I returned, it was 2019. Yeah. But they promoted me well, so they kind of knew who I was beforehand, before the show. But again, like Denmark, there's no like true tradition or culture for wrestling in Sweden either. So like in Sweden, it's more like on like people go to see wrestling on a night, not on a night out. It's not like because they go and then they want to see like a 5-star match. I mean, they'll pop for anything over there, especially in Sweden. I think like the first time I was there, they popped for a snapmare as if it was like a Stone Cold Stunner. So I'd say because they don't have as much knowledge to it, and because they're not as spoiled as other countries, they're a lot easier to have matches in front of, if that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I know that Liu King Sharp, I listened to his interview, and I remember him saying like there was a huge difference between like the Danish crowd and the Swedish crowd. I mean, if you go to like DPW and then go to GBG, then yes, there's a huge difference. But you know, again, he hasn't wrestled for Bodyslam, so but if you like Bodyslam and the GBG crowd, they're quite similar actually, because there is like a huge nightclub feel to GBG as there is in Bodyslam. Whereas like in Malmö, the last time I was there, there is like a nightclub feel there as well. But I think the crowd's a lot more rowdy in GBG. I think it's just like a coastal thing, because when we do shows over here in Denmark, I mean, if you go to like Copenhagen, like they're like rowdy as fuck. Whereas when you go like to Aalborg, which is up north, in northern Jutland, they're a bit more, I wouldn't say shy, but they kind of they're like a cat. They need to warm up to you. Whereas Copenhagen, they're dogs where they just kind of fucking latch onto you immediately, if that makes sense.
Nah, you get it here in the UK. And I need to always remember like to calm it down at some shows, because a lot of the shows that I go to, it might be a lot of drinking. It's that more like Copenhagen kind of atmosphere. And I always remember there was one show and I kind of forgot the sort of crowd that I was in, and Chris Ridgway was there, and there's me just jumping up, shouting hard as fuck, and I look around, nobody's really joining in, there's people, and like, oh, this is like, there's more families here than anything. I was like, shouldn't have done that, should not have done that, but nah, it seems like it's going to be on one of my goals to come to Copenhagen show. I reckon I'll enjoy that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you definitely should. You definitely should whenever this whole thing ends. Yeah. Hopefully soon. But yeah, man, you should definitely check it out. I think like it's probably like cheap. Like where are you based in England?
I'm based Hull, so in Yorkshire.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I think the easiest and probably cheapest like place to go is like from Stansted to Copenhagen. Yeah. I think. I mean, that's where like that's where the crowd is the rowdiest anyway. But anywhere we go, we haven't really had a problem with like with the crowd and stuff. But again, like in Denmark, wrestling is still very new, and you know, you can pretty much have the easiest. What would be compared like a 3-star match in England would be a 6-star over here, because because you know, you don't like they don't have access to it the same way. I mean, there's YouTube, but it's not like, I mean, I know that like in the UK and probably like even Germany, if you go to WXW, they're so like the fans, they're so used to like seeing wrestling. They've seen everything for like years, so you kind of have to like think outside the box. Not that we don't, but we're more character based, because we probably like what Danish people see in wrestling is what like the Hulk Hogan's, the Ultimate Warriors, the Undertakers. Like whenever wrestling is brought up in a conversation, they bring up like those guys. Yeah. So it's more like the characters that they're invested in. So we're kind of like bringing the 1980s style to 2020, if that makes sense.
Nah,
But yeah,
that's
you're
what I
more
like,
than
though.
welcome to check it out whenever this whole COVID shit is over.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna see if I can get a weekend pass from the fiance, 'cause she's not interested in wrestling. So I'm like, look, can I leave you and the baby girl with you, and I'm gonna go fly to Copenhagen, and I'm sure she won't mind.
It's not that far though.
No, it's
Denmark
not.
and England are right next to each other.
Yeah,
Kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
But no, it's like with what you were saying though. I get it, because I like shows with variety, and I like when there is characters and story, because, for example, PWG is brilliant. Everybody loves PWG, especially Battle of Los Angeles, because you're getting a lot of independent pro wrestlers in a massive tournament. But I get tired of that match, probably. Like, after
Me
one
too.
show, I'm just like, right, and I'll probably wait a week until I watch the second show rather than like the day later. Whereas when there is more of a variety, it makes me appreciate more as well.
Right.
Like I can remember being in a crowd for, I think it was Nathan Cruz, who I consider one of the best wrestlers in Europe, and he was in there with Doug Williams, and it was very character, very British technical wrestling,
Yeah.
and the crowd just went really into it. I'm just like, really, like, but for me,
Yeah.
I was really enjoying it. So I think it's just like circumstantial and stuff like that, and like different tastes. But I I agree. People get climatized, and I think here in the UK there might have been spoiled a little bit. So it's good to see that you guys don't have to try and do like
Yeah, but you know,
backflip.
it's not their fault. I mean, even like when I lived there, this was like before the boom. I doubt that it's still around, but do you remember like the wrestling channel where they used to show TNA back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember even like there's so much history with like wrestling in the UK. So of course they're gonna be spoiled. Like there's so much content, whereas like in Scandinavia there really isn't. I mean, we got 3 promotions in Denmark. I think it's like 6 in Sweden, but in Sweden, like they just stick to their city. I mean, GBG, they stay in Gothenburg and then go anywhere else. But so if it was the same, like if we were in the same situation in Denmark, I'm pretty sure it'll be the same way. But yeah, I feel like the same way as you do, as far as like, you know, like I don't watch as much indie wrestling as I used to, but I remember when I did, like I had to kind of like watch it like it was a book. I had to like watch it in chapters because there was so much wrestling. And I love wrestling, but you know, it can get tiresome. And I feel like in wrestling in general, in my opinion, when I watch wrestling now, I feel like the less is more idea is kind of like out the window. And I feel like this, yeah, I don't want to bash anyone, but this probably like less is more is what should be done more often, in my opinion. Without,
I agree.
Yeah.
There's a few people here in the UK, and some that are coming up were like there's a tag team based from Hull, and I'd got them on the show. Like obviously being friends, I trained like years ago when they was in the class and stuff, and they've been looking at like all the old school tag teams from like the 80s. And I remember I sent one of them the other day, match between Terry Funk and Dory Funk Jr. and stuff. And it's little things like that where they'll bring it in. And it, for me, I pop it because it's something you're not seeing. And I spoke to Dean Allmark, and he mentioned he looks in like the 70s, 80s, or even like the early 1900s from different martial arts and different like combat tournaments and stuff, and you're like, right, I could turn that into this. And because again, you're seeing people where I always remember a heel, and first thing in the match, triple threat, somebody gets knocked down within the first 5 seconds, and he runs and does a shooting star, like standing shooting star press, and it's like, you're the heel and you've just popped the crowd, like, and I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
Yeah. I just think like it's the way that wrestling. I mean, you also have to like take in consideration that like the wrestlers who are around like my age, the kids who were born in like the 90s and early 2000s, the ones that they were looking up to were probably like the X Division TNA guys. So that's who they're inspired by.
Yeah.
And I think like in independent wrestling, the whole thing like between faces and heels are unfortunately kind of like, you know, I wouldn't say it doesn't exist, but it's extremely blurred. So I think like in my opinion, I mean, there was a similar situation where I won't mention the name of this person, but and he's a good guy, but there was a spot in a match recently, right after the lockdown, where he wanted to do a specific spot and he was a heel. And I had to tell him, like, you probably shouldn't do that because one, you're a heel. And second of all, like, again, like bringing it back to the Danish crowd, they'll probably pop for that because they don't quite understand, like, who's heel and who's face unless you make it really obvious. So I had to kind of like tell him, you probably shouldn't do that. And then, of course, he listened because I am a true veteran and nobody fucks with me over here. No, I'm kidding. but I just think it's the way that wrestling's evolved. And but then again, like there's different tastes. It's like if you like a different type of genre in music. Yeah. So I don't even know if I'm fucking making any sense, but I hope it made sense.
No, we both just went on away with tangent there, and that's what I like, and I think it's like, to sum it up, it's why I've really enjoyed looking into Scandinavian wrestling, or really enjoyed looking into Southeast Asian wrestling, because it's just so different and it's refreshing, and it's just different, and it's not things that I've been, I guess, climatized to here in the UK. And
right.
I know, like, you ended up being in the UK for the Chikara King of Trios.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was fucking awesome. I loved it. And like, weirdly enough, despite living in the UK for 8 years, but then again, I moved back to Denmark when I was 13. That was like my first and so far only time wrestling there. It was in Wolverhampton.
The only Midlands for you.
Yeah. I believe it was the building where Fight Club Pro, they usually do their shows, because if I remember correctly, the building in Pennsylvania that Shikara usually did their King of Trios tournaments at were getting like torn down or something like that. Like, I don't quite remember, but it was enough for them to like have to find another building. So they ended up coming to like to England, and then I think like Shikara and Fight Club Pro like made out a deal so they could use that venue. I forget the name of it, in Wolverhampton.
Warehouse.
Yeah, the warehouse. So they could use that venue for that 3-day tournament. Yeah, it was cool, man. Yeah.
So, with that being said, I know King of Trios, but you also massive triple threat recently, and again, things start seeming so positive, and then COVID just fucks with everything. It's a Carrot Gold weekend with WXW, and in the now showcase, you get to represent Bodyslam and Scandi Graps. How was that, like, sharing the ring with Emeritus and Peter Alexander?
That was, I mean, it was kind of like, I don't know if surreal is the right word, because I mean, probably is kind of, because again, like 5 years prior, when like we had our first show, like Bodyslam, I couldn't have like for me, I just thought we would like do shows in Denmark and then have like a market there, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Further along the line, we ended up getting like these streaming deals with these other, like, we got High Spot now, and we ended up getting WXW. Probably not in that order, but when we got those streaming deals, there was so many independent promotions on those streaming services that I thought like we would just be like, we would just be like a promotion there, like, because we're in Denmark, and I was like, who the fuck would give a fuck about us, because we're a small country. So to like be a part of that showcase and represent Bodyslam in arguably like the biggest promotion in Europe, was that was quite the experience, and I was like honored to like be one of those guys representing Bodyslam, because again, for me, my goal in wrestling now is just to like kind of build Bodyslam as big as it can be.
Yeah.
That's what motivates me, to tell you the truth. So yeah, man, I loved it. And hopefully we can go back someday soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's get into like all things Bodyslam. And do you think like the way Soren and Christian run their social media, I know they use Twitter, which not many Scandinavians in general use, and everybody that I interview that doesn't have Twitter, I'm like, you need to get on Twitter for wrestling. Do you think the way they market themselves and their presentation, their graphic designing, do you think that's what's helped people like yourself and Emeritus and Peter Alexander get their name out there a lot more?
Definitely. I definitely do. Not to like say, I mean, I'm not like an independent internet darling, but I remember like before Bodyslam was a thing, like I was known in DPW, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas like when Bodyslam came around and was around for like a few years, I remember like people were starting to like recognize me. I mean, I remember when I met Mike Bailey when he was wrestling for us in Copenhagen. I went there to introduce myself, and he kind of already knew who I was.
Yeah.
So that kind of like surprised me a little bit. I mean, I do know like the wrestling business is a very small business. Like eventually, I mean, you know people who know people who know people. So
Yeah.
everyone kind of knows each other, which is why it's a bad idea to talk shit about people, because you will eventually run into them,
Yeah.
one way or the other. But yeah, so Bodyslam, they're doing a fantastic job in promoting and like the video packages and stuff, because that's something that other promotions in Denmark do lack, unfortunately. So I think they do a fantastic job, and us also like they're kind of hard on themselves as far as like promoting and marketing goes, because that like again with DPW, they're not really good at that. So I remember when Bodyslam was becoming an idea and being brainstormed, that's one of the things they wanted to like really like you know they really wanted to make sure that the marketing was not lackadaisical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think it's more welcoming for a talent, be for people like high spots. If obviously if your presentation's not there, people may not give it a chance.
Right.
Like if the graphic design's really good and the match graphics are looking good and the video footage is looking good, people will be more willing to try it out, because sometimes say if it looks as if somebody's just done the graphic in paint or something like that, and you're gonna look at it and be like,
Yeah.
It shows that I know they're not having to invest properly, because Christian mentioned he and Soren, they're doing a lot of the marketing themselves and the graphic designing and stuff like that, but it just shows that the presentation looks great, so you're going to be more willing to see what the in-ring presentation's like.
Yeah, especially because like in wrestling, and this goes like for like from if you watch wrestling for the first time ever, or if you like discover a new promotion, like in wrestling, I feel like, and this is like in the entertainment business in general, you do kind of judge the book by its cover. I mean, normally you say don't judge the book by its cover, but in wrestling, that's what you do, and you kind of have to as well, because again, like you can have whoever, you can have fucking Will Ospreay on your promotion and stuff, but if the production sucks and it looks like it was filmed in 2003, like why would anyone want to watch that and be a part of it? Because I'll take myself for example. When I started watching wrestling as a kid, like in my mind, I'm thinking, whoa, these guys are fucking superstars. They live like rock stars and stuff. If I'm watching some fucking Joe Schmo pro wrestling promotion where it's just like 5 people and the production sucks, like why would I go, oh shit, I want to be a pro wrestler and I want to join that promotion? So you kind of have to like take the marketing serious, especially now these days where there's so much competition and like depending on what the goal is for, like some indie promotions, their goal is probably just to like get on WWE Network, and some is to like get on WXW now. Like whatever the situation or the reason why it might be, there's so much competition, and there's so many like talented people in those departments. You have to like be good at everything, like from the promotion to the marketing to the graphic designing stuff. And Son and Christian, they do a fantastic job, especially when you consider it's just those two who do all that, you know.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. There was a company here in the UK that was classed as one of the top companies, and I enjoyed some of the work that I'd watch like online or through DVDs, and that was Southside Wrestling. They've now merged with Rev Pro, but to me, Southside didn't have the best presentation. Like from what I was used to, like in Hull, there's a company called NGW, and it's more family friendly, but they'd make sure it looks magnificent. They'd have lighting rigs, they'd have staging, and at one point they had doors where they'd just go in and the people walking through, and it just looked, again, like what you said, looks like what I saw on TV. It just doesn't look as if they've put a curtain across where the guys can get changed and put a ring in the middle. To me, I like the presentation because I think it does yourselves justice as well, because it makes you look more of a star. If the production value and everything else is looking on point, then it makes you look on point. You could be wearing hundreds of pounds worth of gear, make sure you look presentable, but if it looks like you're in a barn with a ring that's falling out, like over, it's definitely not going to do you any justice.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. Yeah, man.
So, with that being said, like it's safe to say, like your best work has probably come with Bodyslam. Some of the matches that you've been able to have and stuff like that. And somebody you mentioned earlier with helping you train with Tank, and you've kind of been following a path together. In Bodyslam 1, you face each other. You have that big program over the title, and then you become tag team championships. So, like, how would you sum up that relationship and that professional timeline with Tank?
It's a special one to say the least because I met Tank when I was 13. Like I met him probably a month, maybe even before that. But I met him like 3 or 4 weeks after moving back to Denmark, and he's pretty much the one who took me under his wing. We never got the chance to work in DPW because when he was like the guy over there, I was still just a trainee and I was just getting my feet wet. And then when I was about to get my push, he bounced for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier, but he did it before the whole split. So when Bodyslam was still being brainstormed, I remember me and Soren and Christian were having conversations about, oh, we could do this like blah, blah, blah. And then I mentioned at some point, we could do this like Tank did back in the day. And then Soren goes like, we should see if we could get him back. But I was like, I was thinking to myself, it probably wouldn't happen because DPW over the years, after his departure, they would keep offering him to come back and he would decline every single time. And he was like, he's a national champion in jiu-jitsu. So he was all in on that. So I was like, man, like, why would he come back to wrestling now that it's got all this thing like going on? But then we talked, and then I think what sold him, like what wanted him to return was that he get to work against me, and we have so much history. That he was like, he wanted to do that one match, and then most likely it would be the end, like for good. Because his match prior to that was actually against Axel Dieter, who's now in WWE as what's his WWE name?
Marcel Bartel.
Yeah, that was actually his last match before retiring, and then he took a 5-year break, and then he faced me, and then it was supposed to be it. But then he was like he loved like the vibe and the atmosphere in the back in Bodyslam, and he loved that the product actually looked good, and then he's like, I'll do one more. And then from there, he's been with us ever since. Yeah, but we had a feud for like 2 years, and then that feud ended. And then fast forward, we ended up tagging, winning the tag titles. And then this weekend, we actually lost the belts to Sander and Adonis Randus Payne. But yeah, man.
How did that tag team come about then?
I don't actually remember, to be honest. I mean, storyline wise, the idea, it was like his partner at the time.
Yeah.
His partner at the time needed some time off. Like he had just like gotten a family, so he wanted to spend more time with his kids and stuff, which is understandable. So we did an angle where we had to like do an injury angle where he got rolled off, and then the storyline was he was trying to figure out if he wanted to continue as a singles wrestler or if he wanted to do tag team wrestling and blah blah blah. And then I was on a losing streak after losing the belt to Alessander, and then we had a match, and then where he went over, and then at the end of the match he did the whole extend the hand thing, like help me up.
Yeah.
And then the next show in Copenhagen, there was an angle where he had just had a match in the main event for the Bodyslam title against Alessander, where he loses due to interference from Sweden's Elite, and then they try to like end his career. I come to the rescue, but it looks like I'm gonna help Sweden's Elite, and then I, fuck up Sweden's Elite because I can, and then that's how we ended up as a tag team. But it's like the dynamic is like I'm like the young cocky idiot, and it's kind of like if you picture without it being any of us are Asian, it's kind of like Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker in Rush Hour. You kind of get along, but not quite. And that's how our like tag team is, if that makes sense.
How have you found it being tag team wrestler?
I mean, it's fine. I mean, I'm glad it's with him, and I've done tag team wrestling before, where I like not as like an official tag team, but there was this one certain guy named FBN who we kind of came up together in DPW. We had a year where we kind of faced each other and tagged at the same time.
Yeah, didn't
really make sense, but we did. So it's not the first time tagging with someone. And me and Tank, we have like good chemistry, shoot wise. Work wise, it looks like we don't, hence why we lost the belts. But I'd say overall, and me personally, being like an introvert with a capital I do prefer doing singles matches more than tag team matches, because I like tag matches. You can tend to, not everyone's going to have chemistry with each other. So sometimes it's like so-and-so has an idea, but I don't agree on it. And then this guy doesn't agree. Like, whereas in a singles match, it's a lot easier to like plan the match together and there's less bodies in the ring. But I do enjoy it though. Yeah. And I do enjoy it with Tank. Yeah.
Well, so let's pull it back a little bit then. So going back to winning the Bodyslam title, obviously Tank was the champion at the time. Rick Dominic was in the ring, and then obviously yourself, and you win the triple threat to go from that. And then you had quite a lot of big matches. Obviously you had your TLC with Tank, another triple threat match, but then you started facing a lot of people from, say, like the UK. I know you had a triple threat with two people you mentioned earlier, in Chris Brookes and Flash Morgan Webster. And with that being 2018, that's probably around the time Chris Brookes probably told WWE to do one.
It was
he turned down that contract, and he was at the height of like his popularity in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
How was that match for you against those two?
the one with Flash and Chris Brookes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good, man. I really enjoyed that match. It was very fast paced, but like I feel like I humbly say I can like adapt to any style, but that was a really good match, and I enjoyed working with both of those guys. I felt like because I had met Chris before. We met in we didn't interact too much because like it was a huge fucking locker room.
Yeah.
But I had met Chris during the Shikara thing because he was on that as well with Like Us.
Yeah.
And I forget who the other lad was, but so we had met before. So this was the second time meeting. But it was his first time wrestling with him and Flash as well. I felt like we had a good chemistry with each other, and the match went really, really well, in my opinion. And again, man, I feel like I learned something new every time I wrestle with people who was as talented and experienced as like those two guys are as well. So yeah, man, 2018 was a good year for me as far as like just learning new stuff in the ring. Like I worked with, this was actually in 2017, but I worked with Alexander James as well.
Yeah.
Fred Yehai. I worked Joseph Connors in 2018. So yeah, man, it was a busy year. It was funny though because that reign was actually not supposed to pan out that way. I was supposed to win it, defend, lose, win, lose, and then win. But it was supposed to be like I was like as a heel cheating all the time. But shit happened, so I ended up by accident. Like I was told on the day. Look, I knew when I was gonna lose. It wasn't because I was told on the day actually, but I was gonna lose the belt on certain dates. And then something happened, and I was like, shit, you need to keep the belt a little bit longer. So by accident, I actually ended up having that long reign. But I'm actually glad it happened because if it didn't, then I probably wouldn't have had those matches with those talented guys. Yeah.
So, because obviously, 623 days you had it. So,
Yeah.
clearly the longest reigning champion from an individual reign.
Yeah.
So, what would you say for those listening and have not seen a Michael Fynne match, like especially from Bodyslam, what match or matches would you recommend them to check out?
That's a tough question. Based on those, I mean, those who are out on YouTube, I'd say you probably check out the one I did with Joseph Connors.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch. I'm not sure if it's out on YouTube, but you can check it out on WXW Now, High Spots, like all those streaming channels. But if it's not out on YouTube, then go to WXW Now and check out the one with Flash and Chris Brookes. Oh, and this one is on YouTube. Check out the one with me and Chris Brookes versus Emeritus and Peter Alessander. That's actually one of my favorites. If I don't have a favorite, but that one is one of the favorites that I usually mention when people do ask me if I have a favorite match.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What was it about that match that stands out for you?
Again, like I feel like, well, we were tagging here. We weren't like against each other, but me and Chris, like for whatever reason, I feel like we have a good chemistry in the ring, even though we don't really like. I don't know him that well. I've only met him like 3 times, but it's hard to explain. Like we have I feel like we have a good chemistry in the ring. I'll probably look like a fucking idiot if he goes like, no, the fuck we don't. But I feel like we do. And he's a nice guy. But it's hard to put to words. The crowd was hot that day. Everything just panned out as it should. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that match was one of my favorite matches. Looking back on it, and actually quite proud of that one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you highlighted earlier your goal is to make Bodyslam grow and grow and grow, and Danish wrestling to grow and grow and grow. What are your individual goals? Like, is NXT UK one of those things for you?
I'm not too sure. I've thought about that a lot, and people have asked me. I mean, I'm 26 now. I feel like when I was younger, I mean, I love wrestling, and like I've been a part of it since I was 13, and even though I haven't wrestled like every single day, like one of those schedules, I've been doing it consistently since I was 13. So I wouldn't say it's all I know, but it's kind of like, because I'm good at other stuff, but it's a huge part of my life. But I would say at this point, where I kind of feel like I have things a bit more figured out, it's probably like the worst kept secret for those who know me, but I probably would say that the music is the higher priority than the wrestling, because again, before Bodyslam was a thing, it was like, not because I just wanted to stop wrestling. There was other things like with the whole DPW chaos thing, but I was about to, like, I think I would have quit because the passion was just kind of gone. And then when Bodyslam arrived, my passion came back, but it came back because I like, oh shit, I have a goal now. I can try and make Danish wrestling cool along with these other guys under the Bodyslam umbrella. As far as like NXT UK goes, it is something that I've considered, but again, like, yeah. So I'm just gonna keep it. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm not a fan of the way WWE micromanages. It's something that I've been hesitant to say for a couple of years, but now that I kind of know what I want, and I am passionate about wrestling, but not how I was once. I'm not a fan of how they micromanage, and what I'm afraid of doing is if I go there. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've heard of all the Twitch stuff. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I'm just gonna.
No. I like the honesty because, to be
Yeah,
fair, when you was hesitant, I was like, the only reason you'd be hesitant is because you wouldn't want to give up your music, and they
definitely.
would make you give up your music.
Yeah, that's always been part of the reason, because people have asked me for years, like, why haven't you, like, because not to sound like I'm a dick or anything or cocky, but if I wanted to, I do have connections. I could have gone to like the UK by now, or even like the States. I do know people and made the move, but because of the music, I've been very hesitant. But then as far as WWE goes, like with the whole Twitch thing and being too micromanaged, like, and when I mean micromanagement, I don't just mean by how they control the wrestlers in the ring as far as what they say in their promos and how they behave. Like, I at times can be very outspoken as far as politics goes, and I'm not gonna have anyone, like, I'm not gonna compromise myself with nobody, like nobody. And if I was to go there now, like, I wouldn't have any leverage whatsoever. But that being said, um, just to wrap that up, like I'm passionate about wrestling, but not to the point I want to go out and chase it. That might be disappointing for some to hear, but that's not where I am no more. It might come back, but if, with that being said, if there's a place I do want to go, it's AEW. I feel like there's a place for me there, but again, I just said I wouldn't go like out of my own way to chase it. But if an offer should come up, I probably wouldn't decline. But the music is like what I'm chasing, unless this conversation would probably be like Chris Jericho would be the right person to ask for advice, because I actually don't know, like, I genuinely don't know how he can balance both the music and the wrestling. But yeah, so it's actually the first time I've said that out loud on a wrestling forum, but the motivation as far as wrestling goes, and even for me as an individual, is just to build Bodyslam. If Bodyslam was to end tomorrow, I'm not too sure I'd keep going unless I'd get an offer I couldn't refuse. But again, I'm not like an indie darling, so I don't think I have that kind of demand. But who knows what happens down the line. So yeah.
Hopefully you can sacrifice maybe one weekend and come over to the UK and come wrestle over here. But now, like, I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate you.
Yeah. I'm still open to it. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am open to it. It's just that I don't know if I'll go out of my own way, because if I do start like going over to the UK and training and stuff, it's going to take so much time out of my hands that I wouldn't have time for the music. If that makes sense. But I am definitely still open as far as I'm wrestling, open to like wrestling wherever I go, as long as I get offered it. I hope it doesn't make me sound like well, I'm not gonna go there because like, but if I do get the offer, I am open to it. I'm just not willing or passionate enough about it anymore to go like chase it. Whereas someone like Sander and Peter Olisander, they are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's probably
No,
like an anticlimactic
makes-
answer, but
No. 'Cause on my anniversary episode, I interviewed Dean Olmark, who to me is one of the best the UK's ever produced.
definitely.
When I was speaking to Dean said he's never gone out of his way to try and get a booking. He's never gone out his way to WWE. If they offered him something, then yes, but he never wanted to do that chase. He never wanted to do that politics because he thought the mindset of if it happens, it'll happen. And maybe that was the reason why he may not have got certain opportunities other people have. But to him, he was still happy with what he was doing. He was working on all-star wrestling camps like 7 days a week. He was doing it as a full-time living for 20 years. So it's funny that you should say that because when you were saying it, like it wasn't coming across like any other way. It was just very similar to like what Dean does, where I think it's okay. Like I know it's hard, especially with the internet and the Twitter universe. Although it's real good for promoting, I think it can be a toxic place, and a lot of people are like, well, people feel as if wrestlers should give 100% to wrestling. It's like, well, why aren't you doing this? Why are you only like half-assing it? Why are you doing your music as well? And it's okay to have two passions. It's okay to chase two things. And I don't.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're happy. You're enjoying Bodyslam. You're enjoying your music. And why sacrifice one?
Yeah.
And maybe if you did sacrifice wrestling and just pursued music, you might be happy. But then you may actually miss wrestling. Or if you sacrifice music and on the back burner of that, it got you to wrestling full time. But you may miss the music, and if you're not happy, what's the point?
Yeah, because that's been I'd say that's been my issue just with myself for years. Is like I've never truly known which one I should choose because I've always known. Like, thankfully, I'm not at that point. And if that day should come, I think about it. Then I get fucking anxiety just thinking about it. But I've always known at some point I'd have to choose one over the other.
Yeah.
Because it's not physically humanly possible to do both at the same time. Because again, music and wrestling, they're very similar. Like with music, you're on the road all the time. The only difference is it's not you're not like wrestling. Yeah. And the same with wrestling, vice versa. You do the same stuff. You sell merch at the merch table when you're a musician and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I like where I am right now, and I'm, wrestling for Bodyslam, and like just like through them alone, it's through them that I got the Shikara thing, and I got the WXW booking and stuff like that. It's through them, so it's not like it is possible for them promotions to get a hold of me if they want to. I'm not saying no to anything. I'm just like I'm over the whole, like, thankfully for me, I haven't really experienced any of it. If you follow me on social media, I joke about the whole I'm a veteran stuff, blah blah blah. I don't know, like, if you follow me, you know what I'm talking about. But it's like I'm not gonna walk on eggshells around anyone, and I feel like sometimes the wrestling industry, I'm more comfortable now around it, but when I was younger, I felt like the wrestling industry around certain people backstage, right? So, fellas, and I'm gonna ask you as well, Kurt, do you know how when you're in a relationship with a girl and you've done something and she's pissed, but you don't know what it is and she won't tell you what's wrong? You know that feeling?
But she's banging around, she's giving you that death look, she's sighing, and it's like,
that's
what have we done?
exactly how the wrestling industry can be backstage when you get heat, but you don't know why, and they won't tell you why. And that's just something, like, I'm not gonna walk on eggshells or kiss ass to get a booking. If I get offered anything, great. If not, then I'm happy with where I am. Like, I'm 26 years old. I feel like I'm too old for that shit anyway. I'm just gonna have fun wrestling, you know, doing matches and doing my thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel you.
sorry, ladies, for using that example, but it's kind of the example all the time.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It definitely is, and luckily the missus won't be listening to this one.
All right. Yeah.
But now, man, like, hopefully, like, something does happen. If it was AEW, they do seem very open to letting their talents express their creativity in their other ventures. Look at Britt Baker;
Yeah.
she's still being able to do be a dental practitioner.
Exactly.
And they've embraced that. So hopefully, that's something that could happen, especially when COVID does like disappear and they can come over to the UK. They've obviously got plans to come into the UK, so hopefully, even if it's like say like AEW Dark and you get that opportunity,
I'd be so open to it.
Just to be on that,
Yeah.
and hopefully like some more bookings here in the UK can happen in the future. And
yeah,
but again, I've got to thank you for coming on the show. Like,
definitely.
I could probably
just real quick, I just want to make it be known I'm not anti WWE. It's just that I don't like how they run shit. But if they were to like be more, you know, friendly to as how like if I could do stuff outside of the company with my music and stuff like that, then I'll be open to it. But like AEW is kind of where I hope I can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not anti-WWE. Like, again, for people that are wanting to work there and wrestling is all that they want to do, then
completely fine.
It is the place to be. But again, it's been more public more than ever of people that do Twitch and that's just sitting doing gaming.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel so bad for them. Yeah.
It's horrible, like, especially during this pandemic, and like I feel like if you went there and even if you was allowed to do it, they'd be like, well, you've got to give us a bit of your money. But it was like, I was already doing this, and
exactly.
Like, you could have the exact same bookings as you had going in, but then you'd have to give a portion to WWE, and they own everything about
Yeah. I do see their side, but at the same time, like no one's gonna be there forever. Unless you like get a role as an executive or something like that, you're not gonna be there forever. That goes for any wrestling company as a wrestler. So like they look out for them and I look out for me. I know they say like, oh, we're one big family, but no promotion, no business in the entertainment industry is really a family. So it's just like if shit changes, then probably, but you know, here I am like just ranting, but yeah. Hello?
No, I didn't.
Oh shit, you froze for a bit.
Yeah, so did you. I think that's okay now.
Yeah. All right.
Well, yeah, with that being said, like you mentioned, no big company is a family, no entertainment thing is family, and like you're a family whilst you suit them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And business is business to people. Like when shareholders are putting a lot of their money in, they don't want it just so they're breaking even. They'll want to be making as much money as they can, and that's just the way life is, unfortunately. So
yeah.
But I appreciate your honesty, and it's refreshing to see somebody not. And I'm not saying other people do this, but somebody's not willing to sacrifice their morals and sacrifice like their other passions just for that one thing. Like I said, you can do both.
Definitely, man. I appreciate that.
Brilliant. So where can, like, again, thank you for coming on. Like, really enjoyed it. I think
my pleasure, man.
Getting up to that an hour and a half, and I probably can keep going and going and going and going. And, but where can people find your music? Where can they find you on social media for whether it is your music or your wrestling?
Definitely. So I'm at Michael Fynne pretty much everywhere, actually. Twitter, Facebook, just Michael Fynne on Facebook. And then I have a website too. That's just michaelfynne.com. So yeah, go check me out. Michael Fynne, Facebook, at Michael Fynne on Instagram and Twitter. And then my website, michaelfynne.com. So give me a follow and a like. And yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, man.
I've really enjoyed it. So make sure you do go follow Michael on there. Make sure you go follow Bodyslam and check out some of the matches that we have discussed. And if you enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to High Spots or WXW now, just so you can support more of that. If you're getting fed up of the same old wrestling you're getting accustomed to, then try and look at something else. Again, you're getting some of the best professional wrestlers in the industry, like on there, some of the matches we've said. So make sure you do go check it out. And if you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and have a look at my other interviews, whether it's the full list or have a look at the playlist. We've got the hashtag ScandyGraps playlist. And if you've enjoyed this venture into looking into different wrestling scenes, have a look at my Southeast Asian and China playlist as well, where I've interviewed people from Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Hong Kong, China, and I should have somebody coming from Taiwan shortly. So, again, make sure you check that out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Friday morning.